What's up, guys? Brian here with BPS Customs, and today is the first episode of my new series, Show Me Your Rig. Now, this is going to be a series that I do every once in a while. I wouldn't really count on seeing it regularly, but I wanted to provide people in the community with a platform to showcase their builds, their hard work, their blood, sweat, and tears. People put hours and hours of planning, building, thousands of dollars into these systems, and they just kind of sit on a desk in somebody's office and nobody gets to see them. So this is going to be your chance to have some exposure, some light shine on your creation. Now, this is not going to be a contest. There's going to be no prize for this. People aren't competing against each other. There's no voting or anything like that. I will take a look at each system, provide a little bit of analysis and maybe some critique. I will give a score, or actually 4 scores, to each system at the end of the time period when I'm looking at it. First score is going to be performance. That's going to be obviously a measure of the system performance. That's pretty self-explanatory. The second score is going to be continuity. Do the parts match with each other? Are they all on the same level? Have you put a really expensive processor with a really crappy graphics card, or maybe vice versa? So that's continuity. Then we have originality. How original is your design? It just so happens that the first 2 systems that we're going to be featuring are hardline water-cooled systems. Now, that by no means is an indicator of what I expect to see everybody submit for this. If you have a system that you're really proud of, send it in to me. I'd love to see it. But obviously, the more work and time and custom parts and whatnot you put into a build, the higher your originality score is going to be for whatever that's worth, because it just comes from me. It has no real meaning. And then the last score is going to be appearance. Once again, pretty self-explanatory. That's just the overall aesthetics of the system. So if you guys are interested in submitting your rig for this series, I'm going to post my email address where you can send me all the information at the end of this video. Now, what I'll need is photos, obviously. The more detailed, the better. Obviously, some information about yourself is a little bit helpful as well as like a parts list, maybe what games you like to play or what else you maybe like to do with the system, and any kind of a story, any kind of a backstory that the system may have. Feel free to send me as much information as you'd like, although obviously we are a little bit limited in time as far as putting this up on YouTube. So, as you can maybe see in the background here, I have already shot and I am in the process of editing the first submission for Show Me Your Rig. And this is going to be a little bit longer of an episode. I think I'm going to try to trim it down in the future, but it's a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun doing it. I actually shot these videos on my laptop while I was away on a business trip. So I took advantage of the time I had in a hotel room to shoot this. And in the future, you'll likely see my little face up in the corner of the screen with my office as a background, as opposed to a hotel room. But everything else will be approximately the same. So I'm going to shut up now. Enjoy Show Me Your Rig. If you guys are interested, remember, stay tuned to the end of the video. You'll see my email address. Send me all your information. Enjoy. All right, so this is it. This is the first system. This is Eric Huber, or Uber, or I should probably ask ahead of time. PC number 1 is Eric Huber from Colorado, Denver specifically. He's 24 years old. He describes himself as an avid case modder and water cooler. He uses this system. It's like a showcase system for him. It was built obviously in partnership with Primo Shell, and he uses it to play a lot of FPS games, Far Cry, Battlefront, Call of Duty, things like that. So this is an X99 system, Broadwell E6800K. Great processor. I built a lot of client builds with it. Seems to please a lot of people. It's the entry-level X99 chip. You could do a lot of stuff with it, honestly. Graphics GTX 1080 FE. This is something that I had. I had 2 of these in my system for a long time. They're great overclockers. They're Founders Edition, so they're reference, I guess, but these are great overclocking cards. MSI X99 X99A. You forgot the A, dude. X99A Gaming Pro Carbon. Also another part that I've used in a couple builds, actually. And I used to have this in my personal system. Really good overclocks on my 6900K with this board. 32 gigs of Dominator Platinum. Can't really say very much more about those. These are like premium memory on the market right now. Intel 600p, 256 gig NVMe SSD. I have never actually done anything with these drives. I've heard good things. Price to performance wise, I know they do throttle a little bit, but for as far as an NVMe drive, you're not going to get any cheaper than these. So I hope it's performing well for you. Two 2.5-inch SSDs, one Samsung, one OCZ, and then powered by an EVGA Supernova G2 1000-watt power supply with some Primo Chill sleeved extensions. And then we'll talk about the liquid cooling stuff as we go through. So this is the system. And I want to talk a little bit about this case because I do have a lot of experience with Phanteks cases, and it looks like Eric actually did basically the same thing that I did when I built my personal rig a couple months ago, was that he didn't like the fact that he would have to mount his fans. Let me skip ahead a little bit. There we go. There's a nice money shot of the system. He didn't like that he'd have to mount his fans under here, and it would block the view of some goodies here. My fans kind of encroached on the memory. Maybe there's a little more space in this case. It looks like maybe, but still, you're covering up like your heatsink up here. You're covering up your postcode readout. So he did the same thing that I did, and he put his fans up top. And the way you do that is you actually have to mod the horizontal rails up here, because this right here, this is the radiator mounting tray. This pulls out. And then above here, there's actually space, but it's covered by horizontal braces that you need to mod them in some way, either cut them or crush them, crimp them, to be able to fit some fans up here above this and below the top cover. It's actually a pretty tedious task, and it took me a little while to do it. So I don't know if you drew any inspiration from my build or not, if you had seen my build at all, but that's what I did on my case. All right, so let's move on. And we can see that this build is sponsored by Primo Chill. He did want to say huge thank you to Primo Chill for these. So you can see that all the fittings are Primo Chill Revolver SX and a nice silver that blends in with the rest of the case. EK D5 pump. This pump is really nice. I really like the way this pump looks. And then we have EK radiator. And you can see the radiator is mounted on this custom plate. And I really like this implementation as well. It's the same kind of thing as he has got going on down here with the custom PSU shroud. Actually, you know what? I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because I know there is a better picture. There we go. Really nicely done custom PSU shroud. I assume this is acrylic. I don't know that he said, but I assume this is acrylic with a vinyl cover. And then it's fitted in very nicely. It doesn't look like an aftermarket part. If you come back here, you can see it's fitted right around the front radiator, and it's fitted to the back panel. So this looks like a piece of the case. These look really good, and I really like the way this custom back plate covers up the drive hole. There are holes back here for routing cables in Phanteks cases. You were to mount drive bays like here and here and here, but this plate covers it up. When I had this case, I actually I got a text. I took my pump res combo and I tried to cover it up mostly. Just mounted it right here and covered it all up. But you could still see him a little bit. You really didn't see him very much at all. But this is a much more elegant solution. I really like this a lot. So let's talk about this color scheme. Now, he said that he was thinking about going with a Mayhem's, I don't know if he said or not, but I assume it was Aurora, but they have a silver, and it was a pastel because he wanted to do the black and silver theme. This PC is called Adamantium, and if you don't know what that is, you should probably read a comic book or something, or just watch a movie. So this is black and silver theme. I did a very similar build color-wise to this, called you got me, Eric, called Project Shadowhawk. And it was the same kind of like black and silver used Dominator Platinum, used this motherboard, and it came out looking really stealthy and really slick, and this is kind of the same theme. I like that you didn't go with the pastel coolant. I like the clear in this build. I don't always like clear, but in this case, it seems to work really well for you. The clear really sets off like the lighting, and the shades used here, like the silver in the cables, and then the subtle accenting on the motherboard, the silver on the RAM. I think this is, if you would have silver in this build as for coolant, you might have had too much silver. I think it looks better this way. I like this choice. And then as we come through, obviously nice placement of drain port. It should go in the lowest place. And then the cables are really nicely trained. You said these are Primo Chill sleeved extensions. One thing I actually did notice when I was scrolling through some pictures, and this is extraordinarily nitpicky, instead of having these have to come out and turn, and I know these are probably pre-made by Primo Chill, but you can actually, if you have like a sleeving guy, like my sleeving guy turned me on to this, Joe from Modders Inc. You could configure these cables, you can make them so that they are, instead of always facing up, you could actually have them sideways. So it doesn't have to come out and turn, like it will always just be sideways. And in that way you could have it running right next to the GPU and into this grommet, as opposed to having to kind of swoop down and in. It makes it a little bit cleaner. But that is splitting hairs at this point. This looks really good. And the cables are trained really nicely too. I really like the way the 24 pin looks. And these are my favorite cable combs too. I don't like the ones that you snap into quite as much. You do tend to kind of lose sometimes. The individual prongs sometimes break. And also the cables can just pop out of there. So let's give this system a score, or 4 scores, should I say. For performance, I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. GTX 1080 is an amazing card. 6800K is a very capable processor. A 4 is nothing to scoff at, clearly, but you could, there are better performing systems, I suppose, but 4 out of 5 I think is an accurate score for this. For continuity, I'm going to give this a 5 out of 5. I think this system, everything in here goes well together. The memory, the processor, the graphics card are all on the same level. All the water cooling components are chosen correctly. The case choice is good. The modding is really in line with how everything else looks. This is a 5 out of 5 for continuity. For originality, I'm going to give this a 5 out of 5. I really like the choice of colors here. Almost everybody has some black in their system, but not everybody will embrace the black like this, and then add accents, and the clear really sets everything off. And I like the way you put the lighting in here too. And you did some modding on the shroud, and this is a 5 out of 5 for originality. And then for aesthetics, overall I'm going to give this a 4.5 out of 5. So some really good scores there for Eric. So let's move on to the next system. All right, so next up we have a build from Eduardo. Eduardo is from Brazil, and I'm going to read a little bit of a blurb of what he wrote, because there's a lot here and I don't want to miss anything. So he writes, "Hey Brian, so I'm submitting my Nautilus Manta build. It's my first hardline water-cooled build and my first mini ITX build. I bothered you enough already while I was building it." You did. Sorry for that. You should be. But I couldn't help it. Your Manta build was one of the inspirations for my build alongside MP5 Mafia's Manta build. I'm not familiar with that build. I'll have to go check it out. So first of all, thanks for the inspiration and the amazing job you've been doing with the channel. Flattery will get you everywhere. And I like how you present stuff in the videos, and I think I'm mostly the same vibe if I started a YouTube channel. Maybe you should. Alright, so let's do Show Me Your Rig. The build name is Nautilus Manta. His name is Eduardo Lourenço Pinto Neto. He's 25, from Brazil, and his Twitter you could find right down there. So he writes, "I always had a gaming PC. I played Quake and Duke Nukem 3D. My dad's laptop, old 486 DX266. Man, I remember those days. When I finally graduated from college, I decided I was going to build myself a rig my dad wouldn't need to pay a dime for, and I would set the bar. I built myself a test bench out of acrylic and stainless steel rods. That's impressive. Mounted my 4670K plus GTX 760 on it and blasted through 2014. In October, I got myself a GTX 970. Some months later, a second 970, a custom move for my CPU, and a Corsair 450D, and realized multi-GPU wasn't for me. It is not for everybody. Sold them both and got myself a 980 Ti. Then got a 5820K on a once-in-a-lifetime deal and stayed that way for most of last year. Then I saw your Manta build and went nuts. Okay, careful. Sold my X99 rig and got myself a 6700K, delidded it with a razor and applied liquid metal to the die, and a Maximus 8 impact, and ventured onto this build. So he uses the Manta for some gaming and some 3D modeling. He is designing his own case, which is pretty impressive. One cool fact about this build is that most of the fittings and all the tubing are Barrow branded. They are Chinese branded and have awesome looking fittings with great quality and superb pricing. I know Barrow. A lot of the designs are very similar to Bits Power, and I am a really big Bits Power fan. So if they're similar to them and the quality's there, then by all means, I would imagine they'd be really good too. But I've never used them myself. The bracket that secures the pump res combo to the front rad is a piece designed by me and laser cut from an 8mm thick acrylic sheet. We'll take a look at that in a second. Alongside with lots of other custom brackets and adapters on the water cooling builds. Okay, so let's take a look at it now that we got all that out of the way. We got all the system specs down here: 6700K, Maximus 8 impact, 980 Ti, some Geoscale Trident Z memory, Seasonic 860 Platinum, that's a hell of a power supply. Pump and res is SwiftTech, an EK X-Res 100 DDC pump. Oh, pump top res combo. I was like, well, it's got two pumps. One pump, that's it. All right, so here it is. Clearly a computer in its natural habitat out on the patio. But you get a little artsy with these photos here, Ed. A little grain going on. But here you can see the general layout. This was kind of the best side shot that he gave me, so we're going to go with this. Building in this case, for me, was a real pleasure. This is a small case, but there's so much room along the exterior that you have a lot more flexibility than you normally do have with a case this size. And this is a nice side shot. Let's zoom in here a little bit and take a look at it. So you could see that all these tubes, everything here is run really nice and straight and tight. Nice tight bends. And we're going to take a look at this again in a second, because this is something I want to talk about, this whole section right here. But you could see that he mounted this the way I mounted my my pump and res on my Manta, sideways off of the front radiator. But this is custom. He said he made this bracket custom. So that's a really nice piece to relocate it, because mine I think was mounted up a little high. Caused me a few issues when running the tubes, and this is down lower. It makes things a lot easier. So this is a really nice job. Get a little sag going on in that 980 Ti there, I think, but it's hard to fix sometimes. Another side shot. The cables, the cables are the first thing that stand out to me. Obviously, I think that get some nice sleeve cables in here would be a real good idea. Even if they're just black sleeve cables would look dynamite. These ribbon cables are fine, but this is, when you're looking at a system with this kind of amount of meticulous work, the cables do kind of stand out a little bit. So this is what I want to talk about. So this whole CPU and GPU is run in parallel, which is awesome. I've never done this before. I've never made a system like this before. So I think this is real cool. And people might say, well, how does that work? How does the flow work there? Because it looks like it's just gonna kind of flow up here and just completely bypass going in here, because there's nothing to stop it to direct it inwards. It gets in there. There is a flow that gets established through a system like this, and the water will follow the same path after that. If you had a flow meter on here, you would see it clearly. There's another case with clear fluid, but if you had, it's hard to see with the clear coolant in there. But this does work. It does cool sufficiently, and it looks really neat. I've never done it before, and I really like the way you did these. You used the dual. It looks like you used two 45s, and then put the 90s on the bottom here. So this looks great. I really like the way you did this. And then another shot of this bracket. I think you need to dust a little bit. Maybe dust that off. It's probably from having it out in the patio. But yeah, this bracket's really neat. I should look into doing something like this. I always say that I don't have the equipment, which I don't, I guess, but it would be easy enough to do something like along these lines. So I should look into that, I think. But again, This kind of stands out to me just a little bit. And then the G-Skill RAM. This is like the only color in this system is this RAM, and then the Maximus actually has some coloring on it as well. Right here, see the Maximus Impact, a little bit of red, but that's it. Otherwise, this case is just black and clear. Yeah, so it's just like black, clear, and a little red, which is really neat. I think maybe my suggestion is if you're going to go with some kind of extensions, make them all black except for like one cable or two, one wire or two wires. Make those red, and everything else black. That way you keep with like the completely minimal style with a tiny splash of color. I think that would look pretty sick. But yeah, I like this. This is everything on here is really nicely done, really nice and neat. Looks like you spent a lot of time on this system. So kudos to you, man. So let's give it some grades. For performance, 6700K 980 Ti. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. Granted, this was probably many months in the works. And, by the time I'm doing this, Ryzen is just being released. So we're talking about, a couple generations of chips after Skylake, but the 6700K is still a kick-ass chip. 980 Ti is still a kick-ass graphics card. So 4 out of 5 for performance. For continuity, I am going to give this a 5 out of 5. This is a fantastically configured system. Everything in here matches really, really well together. I really like the way you chose these parts. For originality, I am going to give this a 4.5 out of 5. Black and red has been done, but it's not to say it doesn't look good. My old system was black and red. So what are you gonna do? I really dig the way you ran this in parallel. That's awesome. I think that maybe a different color scheme or something along those lines might have boosted you up to a full 5, but 4.5 is still really good. And appearance, aesthetics, I will give this a 4 out of 5 for that. And mainly, the reason it's a 4 out of 5 is the cables. Sorry to say. And that's a really easy fix, like a real easy fix. And it probably cost you the least amount of money that you've spent on this system, because it looks like you spent a lot of time and money here. So that's it. That's system number 2, and that's all we're going to do today. Thanks for sending in your systems, Ed and Eric. And if you guys want to have your system featured on here, check out this link right down here. This is my email address specifically for Show Me Your Rig. Send me the same kind of information. I need all the system information. I need photos. I need a little bit of your backstory, what you use the system for, any other pertinent information. And once again, not a contest. I do score the systems just, for my own personal entertainment, I suppose. But this is not a competition. This is for the community. This is to give people ideas on what they might want to do with their systems and to show off the hard work and dedication that some system builders have. And the amount of this that is actually art as opposed to just technology, which most people just don't realize. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this first episode of Show Me Your Rig. Send in those submissions if you want to be featured. Subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and all that other good stuff you normally do on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.